Coming. I really do appreciate it. What I'm trying to do is give you information that we're rolling out as a district. This isn't all the information. This is the tip of the iceberg. This is to give you just a little bit of knowledge, so when you're stopped on the street or even on a call, Darlene, there's a seat up here if you want. We got some here. You don't have to sit on the floor. Oh, that's nice.
I knew you were special.
I'm still not going to dinner with you. So what this is going to do, it's going to give you a little bit of information, which can be deadly, but I want you to have this as we roll it out. If you guys been on your Facebook this afternoon or on the webpage, I put this stuff out there, and it's starting to pop. We've contacted, I think it was close to 400 people it reached by the time I got downstairs. So this is a mass push. What I started with, for those of you who don't know, we started with this back in March. I started prepping our board. We have, for those of you who don't know, I'll bring this down. We've got a 5-person elected board. I started prepping them, trying to get them on board. Once I got them on board, which was August, I believe, around August, I got them to all agree that this is the direction we need to go. The next step for that was to reach out to the elected officials. We have township elected officials and we have village elected officials. Then combined, there is 14 of them, 14 elected officials, and I sat with each one of them, went through our budget. Not each one of them, there were 2 that blew me off, that really don't, I think, support us in a full fashion, but we'll find out. I sat with 17, or all but 2. All but 2, thank you. I sat with all but 2, and they spent about an hour and a half to almost 3 hours on any given, any given person, depending on what questions they had. And I started going through our budget. And this is our budget, and this is where our money goes, and how we spend it, and that what you make isn't anywhere close to what a traditional firefighter makes, and the sacrifices you give up are nowhere close to what a traditional firefighter is getting in the way of benefits. So what we had to do was sell that. Then I went on to talk about, after talking about all of you and the job and the good jobs you're trying to do out there, I went on to our infrastructure, our buildings. You'll see we got $8.5 million just crumbling away. And those of you, Station 2's heat, Station 3's roof, the parking lots. The list goes on. Chief Keefe has developed a long list of about $4 million worth of things we need to address, and we don't have the money for it. So after I met with each one of them, they all understood. They told me they understood our plight, where we wanted to go, and said they supported me. Now, as each one left, I said, I need 200 votes from each one of you to make this work. If I can get 200 votes from our trustees and 200 votes from all the elected officials I met with, I get 3,000, a little over 3,000 votes. That's what I need for this to pass. I then went to a township meeting. After I talked to all of them, it was the big coming out party the first week in September. I brought it out into the public, and that was the first, it's on public record that we're going for this referendum. 2 weeks later, I went to the village, or I was scheduled to go to the village committee of the whole meeting. They called me and asked if I wanted to reschedule. Well, let me tell you, the township meeting had about 9 old ladies at it that went, oh, you're very good. And we understand. Go to the village meeting, and they called and said, we got an angry group of residents that are coming, 100 to 150 that are protesting a townhome development on the east side of the tracks. So, not to cower and run, I said, put me in. Fuck yeah, I'm going in there. And I'll take my chances, because that's a captive audience. Yeah, they're going to be angry. They're angry already, so what more can I do? So I started my speech by thanking them to come listen to what the fire chief had to say, because I can't pack a room like that. So I thanked them all. They had a good laugh. And I went on with my presentation. And that presentation is what you're going to see tonight. After I'm done with this, I'll open it up. You guys can ask questions. I'll Hey, thanks for making it. Gee whiz, you only knew about this 3 fucking weeks ago. So, spring referendum. It's gonna happen March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. From what they tell me, luck of the Irish, I don't know, but we'll find out. Who are we? We cover 36 square miles. We have 12 positions that we staff every day, 7 of them are contract. I don't have to tell you guys the difference between contract and part-time, right? We all understand that. Full-time, there's myself, Lori, and Joe as the fire inspector. You can see, we have 3 stations we cover those 36 square miles with. The value of all 3 stations, with nothing in it, is $8.5 million. That doesn't include any of the equipment that we have. We're targeting those 3 stations. Our fleet, we got 4 ambulances. If you don't know it, the district signed a contract for our last new ambulance, or the next new ambulance. We bought an AED, right? AED from ARV. So it's a little confusing. And the committee's gonna be working to get that spec dialed in. We have 4 engines, a tender, a dive van, a boat, a brush truck, ATV, 6 utility vehicles, and the Quint's due in January 2020. Optimistically, it may be here in the beginning of December, maybe, we'll see. If you haven't looked at it, you can check out pictures online and watch it be built. I think it was in its final wiring. I think it was the last set of pictures they put up. So that's what we are right now. Our call volume, and I apologize, those of you in the back are gonna have a hard time seeing this. We started gathering statistics when I became deputy chief. I was gathering stats. We needed to know what we were doing, how we were doing it, and who we were doing it to. So, in 2017, we had 921 fire calls, 2,217 EMS calls. Now, compared to 2016, when we first started getting data, our fire calls went up 25%. Our EMS calls went up 4% in 1 year. Now that seems like a lot for it to go up. Now we can explain that 25% because we took the fire alarms away from CENTCOM and threw it back to the central stations and said, the companies are paying you to dispatch your fire alarms or at least monitor your fire alarms. We were paying close to $18,000 a year to monitor their fire alarms that they're already paying. So I pulled that back, took the alarms out of CENTCOM and said, you pay for it. So when we did that, ADT, whatever they're called, Tyco now, botched the whole system. They didn't notify people that they were, this switch was going on, that in the meeting they were supposed to notify. In the switch also, we found out that some alarms weren't being maintained properly, and we had this spike in trouble alarms and fire alarms. So in fact, we go up to 2018, our calls went up again, 7% to 983 in the fire and 2380 for EMS. 7%, both those went up. That was natural growth. Not so much at 290 Unita Terrace, but that's only a small percentage, really. But there was an increase of 7%, we're creeping up. So I took these stats in June, I took them through 2019 to June. Compared to the halfway points, and you'll see on the PowerPoint, and I'll leave PowerPoints around at the station so you guys can look at them and reference them. But I took the halfway mark of 17, 18. Our fire calls went down 5%. Now why do you think that might be?
There's Inspector Joe.
There you go. Thank you, Inspector Joe. We're getting out there. Those trouble alarms, those low batteries, those fire alarms, were coming down. We were getting to the root of the problem. However, EMS calls went up 5% already. And again, that's not all in that. They are creeping up. We can take the next numbers out, they're still going up. One of the problems we have, we're funded mostly by tax dollars. That's property taxes are what drive us. We have some small fees we are able to generate, and we have ambulance fees. And ambulance fees are supposed to be the driving portion and pay for the paramedics and the Metro contract that we have here. The Metro contract for the 21 of you in that contract cost the district $1.7 million. Now we were tracking those numbers of we do bill. When we got our first check in 2017, the cost for an ALS2 ambulance ride, that's if you're doing some kind of advanced care, is for a resident $1,500. Medicare, if they're on Medicare, Medicare only pays $660 of that bill. After that, it's a wash. So that difference of $1,500 plus mileage in the 16 is gone, unless they have a supplement. They have a supplement, a Part B, we can charge to that. But if they said, I don't have a supplement, that's it, it's a wash. Medicaid, the public aid people pay $200 on that bill. That's it, they have nothing else, we get nothing else. So in 2017, of those 2,200 calls we had there, and you had to follow along, the people who used our service in that ambulance, 27% of them were on Medicare. So 8% were on Medicaid, 50% were on commercial insurance, and 13% were cash pay. Now, if you remember, everybody's supposed to have insurance. Even back in 2017, Obama said, you have to have insurance or the insurance police will come. 2018, with our calls going up. Now, at the time, I didn't have this information until I started seeing the revenue start to dip. 2018, calls going up, Medicare went up to 36%. That was an 11% jump in the people who used it. Now, what does that do ratio-wise? They're paying less. More people are using it, they're paying less. 11%, there was a 3% jump in Medicaid. Commercial insurance, where we see just about 100%, went down to 43%, that dropped 7%. And cash pay, or private pay, went down to 9%. Going into 2019, and this is where I found it, because I was expecting this year to take in revenues from the ambulance service based on 2017 and the beginning of 18 numbers. I was expecting about $800,000 in revenue, and that offsets that 1.7 million for Metro. So when I got the check, it was only about $760,000, $750,000, which is less than what I budgeted for. This was right after June, or right after May, when they approved our budget. I had to strike out of our budget $60,000 this year because we got less money. We were counting that as revenue this year. So what happened, Medicare was 49%. It almost flipped in 2 years from the commercial pay to the Medicare users. Medicaid kind of leveled out at 10%. Commercial pay is down to 36%. From 50%, that's a 14% drop. When you do all that math, we should have, if we would have used the 2017 payer mix, we probably would have had close to $940,000. But we took in about $200,000 less. Because we have a sicker population. They're getting older and sicker. At least the people that are using our ambulances. So we have that data to show. We can show them the average age of who's using it. Numbers don't lie. I can pull this data out left and right. So again, we're on track for 3,600 calls this year. If you look at the number, extrapolate them out, we're going to be right around 3,600, which is another, again, increase in our call volume. And we're doing it with the same number of people. We keep going up. Who thinks they don't have enough to do during the day? Come on, somebody's got to raise their hand. Jim, great. Miguel? You look like Miguel in the dark. Sorry, Raul. So here's our budget numbers of what it actually costs to run the fire department. Again, we extend taxes, or we levy taxes on the corporate side and the EMS side. We take in just under $1,900,000 on the corporate side, about $1.6 million on the EMS side. We took in taxes, or what our anticipated revenue for this budget cycle. For those of you who don't know, our budget cycle starts May 1st and goes to April 30th. We were anticipating $3,576,000 and some change. We anticipated $853,000 based on the numbers I had. And that's gone to hell, because we didn't take that in. We took in around 760, something crazy like that. So that's down. Fire inspections. So I'm kicking Joel in the ass, get out there and inspect. We charge now for fire inspections. It's basically, for a normal business, it's $50 to get a safety inspection done. This is supposed to be paying for Joe. Make the businesses pay for the guy who's doing all the work for them, and not let the residents do it. So that's what these fees are for, and they're fighting, businesses are fighting us on that. Impact fees, every time a home gets built, a brand new home on a vacant lot, we get a certain amount of money for that house. And it's based on the size of the bedrooms. So if it's a 2-bedroom, we charge X, I don't remember what the dollar amount was. The most you collect on a 5+ bedroom house is about $750 for each one of those. And what that impact fee is supposed to do is cover the impact they're making on the fire department. And it really doesn't even make it down. Other income, bake sales, right? You gotta have a bake sale. Donations, things like that, $75,000. So we anticipated spending $4.564